Welcome back to the Bracketology 2024. In just under 2 weeks until Selection Sunday, we will have another bracket prediction coming to you right now. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button because we will be having conference tournament predictions over the next week for all the major conferences and some mid-majors there, as well as more Bracketology and selection show updates from there, so be sure to subscribe. But let's get started in the bracket, where on our first 4 games we have New Mexico against Wake Forest. So both these teams are on a brutal downswing. New Mexico lost to Air Force, then lost at Boise State pretty handily. Wake Forest picked up that win against Duke that resulted in the court storm, then lost to Virginia Tech and Notre Dame back-to-back. Not good for the Demon Deacs there. I like New Mexico to win this one, but I'm not convinced totally that they're going to make this tournament. But I'm even less convinced in Wake Forest right now. They're just not playing well, taking care of business. We'll see if they can even do that in the conference tournament, much less their remaining schedule. We'll see what happens there. Then Seton Hall against Virginia, and I don't know how Virginia continues to stay in these mock brackets. Seton Hall, not the best team away from home in Big East play, but picked up a couple of marquee wins against Marquette and UConn at home. I like Seton Hall to win this game easily. Virginia just can't do a thing on offense, and their defense breaks down at times. Whenever they lose, they get blown up. Not good for the net ranking, and whenever they win, they seem to win close. I like Seton Hall to take care of them easily there. Now let's move on, and to play Purdue, I've got Texas against Mississippi State. I like Mississippi State here. Texas, heartbreaker against Baylor, held the lead for most of that game, but then Baylor comes back in a blaze and beats them. Mississippi State here, I think they have to play better than they did against Kentucky on last Tuesday, because that was a game Mississippi State should have won at home at the Hump, and then they would go on the road to Auburn. What they did wrong against Kentucky was try and run 100 possessions a game against a Kentucky team that specializes in doing that. I'm surprised Mississippi State even got as many points as they did. Should have won the game, but a late collapse and some Reed Shepherd brilliance. We'll get to that later. That being said, off the 2-game losing streak, tough schedule. I like Mississippi State to win this one, control the tempo, but I need that coaching to turn around there for that to happen. So we'll see what happens there. Clemson, Richmond, I like Clemson to win. Not convinced that Richmond will actually end up getting this automatic qualifier. I still think Dayton will win the conference tournament, which would most likely knock Richmond out there. Kentucky, App State, obviously great win against Mississippi State, as I mentioned before, but that close game against Arkansas did not inspire much confidence in me. I like them to beat App State here, but some of these lower teams, if they can just have a hot shooting night like Arkansas did, they can definitely get Kentucky, and that was a Kentucky home game. So the no defense, I don't know how well that strategy has worked in the tournament for teams. I feel like it is a little bit risky there. Then we have Wisconsin against South Florida. Gave South Florida the upset in this matchup last week. I'm surprised that it's still like this. Wisconsin dropped the seed line from the 5 to the 6. South Florida gained 1 from the 12 to the 11. South Florida's ranked in the AP poll, but don't let that fool you. The metrics don't really love them, but I like them to win this game. Wisconsin just can't buy a win. South Florida, impressive win on the road at Charlotte there. Just let that one throughout. Baylor, Oakland, I like Baylor there. Then Dayton, Oklahoma, and Dayton has been struggling on the road in A10 play. The problem is any one of these A10 opponents is worse than Oklahoma here. I know it's tough to win on the road. They just dropped 1 to Loyola Chicago there, but I like Oklahoma to win this one. Played within 2 of Houston due to a late surge there, but then Houston gets it back. I like Oklahoma to bounce off that performance and win here, and they would play Marquette. Then in the East, we've got UConn playing. I like Texas Tech here. Nebraska, unprecedented home record. I think it's like 17 or 18-1, but I'm not totally convinced on the team. Elsewhere, the Big Ten's having a little bit of a down year. Texas Tech, I feel like, is a little underrated here just because of their varying success throughout this season. They've gone on streaks, hot and cold. Not totally sold on them, but I like them to beat Nebraska here. I think Texas Tech has a good chance of beating Baylor at home on Saturday. Then Washington State against Princeton. I like Washington State to win this one. Tough matchup for Princeton. I think they could get some other teams. Washington State is just too consistent scoring the ball down low. I like Washington State to win there, and they would play Alabama there. Then South Carolina against Seton Hall. And I'm going to take South Carolina narrowly. I also have a lot of concerns with South Carolina, as I've detailed in other videos, but I don't really see either of these Seton Hall or Virginia teams giving them a game. I think that maybe a more dangerous mid-major or high major team could give it to them, but I like them to beat either of those teams there, and they would play Kansas there. Then Gonzaga against Villanova, very impressive week for Gonzaga. 2 wins at USF and at St. Mary's, giving them their second and third quad 1 wins of the season. They now appear to be a lock for the tournament, and they're surging. Villanova also just has been up and down this year. They seem to be playing their best basketball right now. That being said, I like Gonzaga to win. Gonzaga might be a top 25 team in the nation right now, so that's going to be a tough first round out for whoever gets them, especially the 2 seed, like they'll play next time in North Carolina there. So back to the Midwest second rounds through the Final Four. So we've got Purdue against Mississippi State. I had this matchup last week, so I won't bore you with it. I still have Purdue winning. Purdue was close with Michigan State at first, but pulled away there. Impressive victory. So I like Purdue to win that one. Then Clemson against Kentucky. I had this one last week, and I'm still going to go with Kentucky here. Remember, I had Kentucky making a run to the Final Four last week, so I'll give Kentucky this nod again. Clemson had been on a 3-game win streak against Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Pitt, but then lost at Notre Dame. Kind of a head-scratcher there, for sure. Notre Dame kind of surging, but that's no excuse for a good Clemson to even lose to them. Kentucky was, got away with it in both of those games against Arkansas and Mississippi State, but it's better than a loss, so I like Kentucky to win that one there. Then South Florida against Baylor, and I like Baylor to beat the doors off them. Baylor has had some fortunate shooting splits, particularly in that Texas game. I am looking to fade them against Texas Tech on Saturday, as I mentioned before, but I still like the macro on this team, and honestly, no one is talking about this Baylor team as a team that can make a run. Obviously, they have some defensive issues to patch up, but I really think that they can make a run if they get a good draw, like they obviously have here, playing 2 double-digit seeds. I like Baylor to advance there. Then Oklahoma against Marquette. Haven't had a chance to talk about Marquette yet, so I will now. A couple players absent in that Saturday almost blowout loss to Creighton there. Now they get to play UConn at home and are missing Kolek. That's tough. I don't know if Kolek will be back anytime soon. I'm going to pick Oklahoma to get the upset here. Sorry, Marquette fans, but I like your chances against UConn, but we'll see what that spread is because, Kolek seems to just be a massive part of this team, and they already lost by 25 at UConn, and Kolek didn't really do anything in that game, so this is not a good sign for a Marquette Golden Eagle team, and, Oklahoma came close but no cigar against Houston. I think they get it done against this Golden Eagle team here. Then Purdue, Kentucky. Last week I had it going to Kentucky for the reasons of Kentucky can get it done on the outside. I don't know if Purdue would be able to contain it, but in this version of the matchup, I think Purdue's just been too consistent for me to pick Kentucky twice in a row. I'll go with Purdue there. Then we've got Baylor against Oklahoma, good old Big 12 Sweet 16 matchup. And Baylor won this one convincingly by 17 points against Oklahoma at home. Baylor's been playing better as of late since the 2-game losing slide to at BYU and against Houston at home when they lost in overtime there. But I like Baylor to win this one and take care of business. We'll see if they play in the Big 12 tournament, but if that matchup were to happen, I'd obviously have Baylor, and they would be a seemingly heavy favorite there. So now we've got Baylor in the Elite 8 against Purdue, and I've been talking about this Baylor team as a team all throughout this video as a team that can make the run, so I'm going to say it. I think they can beat Purdue. For the same reasons I thought Kentucky could beat Purdue last week. Baylor gets a hot shooting game outside, kind of plays that one. I don't know if they can play their 1-3-1 zone or whatever zone they're going with on any given day against Edie. You really can't do that because you kind of have to double unless they go with a lower approach to that. I don't really know if it will work, but they might be able to stop Edie. But even if they don't and they say, all right, we're giving Edie all the points, I think that they can outshoot Purdue on a good day. So I'll have it happening here to give you guys some variance in the matchups that we're getting. Baylor to the Final Four there. Then East Region, second round, UConn, Texas Tech. I like UConn to cruise in this one. Already talked about Texas Tech a bit. A little too up and down for my liking. I think UConn might be the best team in the nation. And one thing we haven't brought up is that UConn, Houston, and Purdue at this point all have very similar resumes in terms of quad 1, quad 2 wins, records, all of that. I think they all have the exact same record. So it's very interesting there. UConn could easily be the best team in the nation, but I like them to beat Texas Tech there. Then Washington State against a falling Alabama. Couldn't get it done against Tennessee on Saturday. Brutal loss for their hopes at the SEC there. So I like Alabama to win this one. I don't see Washington State on the same tier to be, 1 seed line within Alabama, but obviously the predictive metrics like Bama because they blow out the bad teams. Washington State played close with both USC and UCLA there, so that's a little bit of a concern. I know that both those teams are getting hot, but they really didn't have the lead for long in that USC game. I like Alabama to get it done there and faced UConn, South Carolina against Kansas, and I like Kansas to boat race them. Yes, I know this is the most losses Bill Self has had in a long time. They've also played a tough schedule, and they already have that win against UConn and a win against Houston, mind you. I don't think that they get it done at Houston this weekend, but I like Kansas to win easily in this matchup here. Then Gonzaga, North Carolina, matchup I've been hinting at, and you know what? I'm actually going to give this one to Gonzaga. So bad day to be a 2 seed And the reason North Carolina lost to Kentucky, Gonzaga beat Kentucky, so common opponent there. I like Gonzaga to get it done there. Send North Carolina home. North Carolina, I haven't really talked about them. They've been getting it done in ACC play. That Miami game was closer than I thought it would be last Monday. Even at home for North Carolina, they almost choked it, but they had a commanding lead throughout, so that doesn't really concern me. But I do expect them to lose at Duke just because of how tough it is to play in Cameron Indoor, plus Duke coming off the bounce back there. So give me Gonzaga to advance to that round against Kansas. I think Kansas would do away with them right away if that matchup were to surface. So then Kansas would play the winner of Alabama against UConn. Alabama is one of these teams that might be able to beat UConn. It just depends. I did not like that showing against Tennessee. Next up on the schedule for them at Florida, like that's a tough game. Then against Arkansas, I don't love this Alabama Crimson Tide team going forward. I'll have UConn winning it there. And then UConn against Kansas, the rematch, and I'll take UConn this time. Same rematch as last week. UConn to the Final Four there. Now let's get into the bottom and start with the West. Arizona playing Nevada or Michigan State. And I don't really know what to say. I'm going to pick Michigan State. Nevada's definitely been the hotter team if anyone saw that buzzer beater at Colorado State. And Michigan State obviously coming off the loss to Purdue. Some head-scratching losses at home for Michigan State. I just fail to believe that they're worse than a Nevada team here. But I could be proven wrong. In quick order in the tournament, Michigan State is spiraling, and we'll see if they can actually be left out of the field completely. I would doubt it, but I mean, don't count anything off for this team there, and they would play Arizona there. Then BYU against Grand Canyon, and in the Salt Lake region, I'm going to go with BYU here, pseudo home game. The Lopes, I mean, I expect them to win the WAC tournament very easily there. They can shoot sometimes. So we'll see what happens. I think BYU is just too good. Great week last week for them. The win at Kansas, huge after 2 losses in a row on the road. One to Kansas State, which was ugly. So good week for BYU there. Then they came back after a 20-point deficit to TCU to win that one. So very interesting week for the Cougs there. I'll have them winning in that one then, and they will play Illinois in the next round. Then Florida, New Mexico. I'm going to go with Florida. Again, I expect them to beat Alabama at home despite a bad week last week. Just lost on the road in overtime to Bama and lost to South Carolina on the road as well. Tough losses from the schedule maker point of view, but I like them at home, and they could be better on the neutral site, and their early season resume was kind of hampered by some injuries that they had. They're full strength now. I like them to beat New Mexico there, and then they would play Creighton in a very interesting matchup in the second round. Then Boise State, Florida Atlantic, and FAU, I don't know. I don't really believe in them. Boise State playing their best basketball right now. I like the Broncos to win. Again, just beat New Mexico on the home floor. Now have Nevada on the home floor, then go to San Diego State. So they're playing the gauntlet of tournament teams, not to mention that Mountain West tournament, which could have multiple, up to 6, maybe 7 if they can get a bid thief. We'll see though. I like Boise State to win there. I don't think Florida Atlantic has been tested all that much, but they will play Memphis in short order. So we'll see what happens there. They already lost to Memphis the first time in the season on the road. Houston plays the winner of Northwestern and Colorado State, and both of these teams I'm looking to fade right now. Northwestern couldn't get it done at home against Iowa last week, so I'm going to go with Colorado State here. I think they've been playing a little bit worse than their kind of level. Again, the buzzer beater against Nevada on their home floor, and then they did beat Wyoming, came back and did that. Don't really have too many more tests on their schedule, if any, besides the tournament, so I'm going to go with Colorado State here. Northwestern just too banged up for me. Boo Buie was keeping him in that Iowa game, just hitting shots in the clutch. But I like Colorado State in an offense versus offense matchup there. I think they're a little bit deeper. They would play Houston. Then Auburn McNeese. I like Auburn to win there, although McNeese could be a tough opponent for an Auburn team that really does not go on the road well there. And then look at where this game's played in Spokane, so that could be tough for them. Then San Diego State against Charleston. I like San Diego State to win that one there. Again, with some of these auto qualifiers, I don't know if they're actually going to be making the tournament, so I don't really want to be picking them to get an upset there. And San Diego State would play Auburn in the second round. Then Utah State against Indiana State. And I'm going to go with Utah State in this one. I think that Coach Danny Sprinkle just has a great team right here with this Utah State squad. Good thing going. Indiana State, not sure if they'll even win the MVC tournament. They've been up and down as of late, obviously, in these lower conferences. You know, sometimes there is a fatigue of playing lesser opponents every game, but it's really no excuse. Indiana State doesn't have a marquee win yet, so we'll see what happens in that tournament, but I could see this one going either way. I'm going to lean Utah State right now, and Utah State would play Duke there. Then St. Mary's against TCU. I'm actually going to go with TCU here. They've had a tough go of it, again, led by 20 at BYU, so I think they're a little undervalued right now, and pretty much got manhandled against Baylor, but couldn't hit a shot really. Now they go on the road at WVU and then against UCF. I could see their seed line improving. I'm going to go with the upset here. St. Mary's just lost to Gonzaga. Didn't really do anything in out of conference. They won at Colorado State, but yeah, St. Mary's, they had been on the tear, 15-0 in WCC play, finally lose their last one. I like TCU to win that one there, and they would play Tennessee in that one. So second round in the West, Arizona against Michigan State. I like Arizona to blow them up. Again, not even sure if Michigan State could get past Nevada. I don't trust them to get past the big boys, especially in Salt Lake where the crowd should heavily favor Arizona. Then BYU against Illinois in Salt Lake. And once again, I'm going to go with BYU. The scheduling advantage is just crazy here that they can get that. I don't even know if this is possible to have 2 straight regions in a bracket because you're essentially just watching this chunk of the bracket if you go to those games in Salt Lake. But anyways, I'll have BYU winning just at home. Illinois playing better as of late with Shannon. Now they get Purdue at home. I think they win that, but I like BYU to win if it's going to be a pseudo home game. Illinois, impressive win at Wisconsin. Wisconsin just kind of flailed and choked there. So interesting one there. Then Florida, Creighton, 2 pretty hot teams right now. Creighton has wins over Marquette and UConn in the past couple of weeks, and they are surging to that 3 seed line. Wow. I'm going to give Creighton the nod here, even though I already mentioned how much I like Florida. But now I think they're more level with what a fair value is. They were up at 9, 7, 8 seed. A couple weeks ago, so now I think they're at their level. I'll give Creighton this win here. Then Boise State against Iowa State. I think this one's just a rout. Iowa State win at UCF last weekend. Boise State also the impressive win against New Mexico, as I mentioned multiple times. I like Iowa State. Their defense is just suffocating, and I think they win that one easily there. So then third round, it would be Iowa State against Creighton. Very interesting matchup. Again, everyone's harping on these Big 12 teams for not playing anyone out of conference, and one of the main teams that they're taking out their complaints on is Iowa State. Only beat really Iowa while losing to Texas A&M and Virginia Tech out of conference. But they've been playing much better as of late. Played Houston just about the closest out of anybody. Get BYU at home, then at Kansas State to finish it off. I think they can finish strong, and I think they can beat a Creighton team that, might be at the peak of their value right now just with that scheduling advantage with those home games against the Big East best teams. Then BYU against Arizona, and this one would be in Los Angeles. I like Arizona to win there. Last week I gave BYU the nod in this exact matchup because it was in Salt Lake. I'll do the opposite for Arizona, and if you want to hear my analysis on that game, just go to last week's video. But Arizona's just been a wagon in Pac-12 play ever since that loss to Washington State. So then I have Iowa State against Arizona, and I actually think that on a true neutral court, I think I'd go with Iowa State here, but just since they have this advantage of being in Los Angeles and everything, I'm going to lean Arizona. If they can shoot their way out of Iowa State's defense, they have too many guys that can go at you. The 2 big man combo with Ballo, then Caleb Love just bringing it down. The court, I like them to beat an Iowa State team that is almost equally talented on the defensive end, but I think Iowa State could struggle to score or keep up in a game like this. I could see it turning into kind of like that Mississippi State against Kentucky game where Arizona just improves the pace and Iowa State can't keep up. I like Arizona to advance to the Final Four there. Now final bracket, Houston, Colorado State, and I was questionable on Colorado State last time, even more questionable now against Houston. I like Houston to win in a rout. They just seem to beat these mid-major teams by 40 or 50, so yeah, I'm not excited for what that matchup would be. The spread would be like 15 or something, something insane like that. Then Auburn against San Diego State. I'm actually going to have San Diego State winning, carrying their seed line here. Auburn just very up and down here. Cannot win away from home. This one in Spokane. San Diego State already won a game, true road game in Spokane against Gonzaga, so I like San Diego State. They're more familiar with the terrain there. I like San Diego State to win that one. Then we've got Utah State against Duke, and I like Duke to win this one in a rout. Impressive win against NC State. Duke is rolling ever since that loss to Wake Forest there. Got Filipowski back, as I predicted. It wasn't really an injury at all, just all this publicity. Now you've got teams like Alabama and Mississippi State practicing for court stormings that don't even happen because they don't win, all because of this Duke incident. So kind of crazy how that can just lead to a sport-wide controversy, but I like Duke to win there. Then we've got TCU, Tennessee, and Tennessee, no team is hotter than them right now. Win against Auburn and then Alabama. I mean, impossible to get better than. And Tennessee has really sold me. And look at this gauntlet of a schedule. So you play those 2 top 15 teams. Now you're at 17 South Carolina. I like them to win that one. And then against Kentucky on the neutral floor, I could see them losing that just because Kentucky does not really care about home or away like most other teams do. I think Kentucky could outshoot them, but I like Tennessee to cruise in this one against TCU here. I think Tennessee would beat Duke here. Remember, they lost to North Carolina, but so did Duke on the neutral floor. So I like Tennessee to win this one just for all the reasons I've stated. I think that they're just a wagon right now. And then San Diego State against Houston. This feels like a matchup I would have seen in the out of conference. I didn't, but San Diego State likes to play a lot of these teams. San Diego State lost at BYU while Houston won there. So, I mean, that alone is enough for me to pick Houston, but Houston's just a better team. These teams play similar styles. We saw what happened when Iowa State went up against Houston. Well, one time they lost on the road, but when it was at Houston, they just kind of suffocated them. This one would be in Dallas, heavy Houston crowd. I like Houston to win that one. They would play Tennessee, I think, easily, obviously, as I've said. But then the winner of that, I'm actually going to go with Tennessee pulling off the shocker. They've just had too good of a week. It looked like Alabama was going to win that game, but Tennessee is just finding a way to win, whether it's Dalton Connect, whether it's the defense, held Alabama to a low shooting percentage, as low as Alabama's been in weeks. And I think that they could do the same to a Houston team that doesn't shoot the ball very well. Houston does play great defense and they hustle after balls, but I think that they get unlucky in this one, then have Tennessee win there. So let's go to the Final Four where we have Baylor against Arizona, and I'm going to have Arizona winning this one. Again, Baylor, I've already pressed a lot to get here, but one thing, both of these teams played Michigan State on the neutral court, and Arizona won and Baylor lost. But how about this? They also both played Duke. Baylor also lost on the neutral and Arizona won. So I just think Arizona would win this game if it came down to it. Arizona not playing as good in Pac-12 play as they did out of conference, but I like Arizona to advance to the national final there. Then you've got UConn against Tennessee, and once again, Tennessee just going through an absolute gauntlet here. And both of these teams lost to Kansas earlier in the season. Just the way Tennessee is playing right now, it's hard to pick against them, so I'm not going to. I'm actually going to have them advancing to the final, play Arizona. Just nothing wrong with UConn. I just think in some of these games it's a toss-up, two powerhouses going against each other. I could see Tennessee taking away this one seed from Arizona, actually, eventually. If they can win out and then win the SEC tournament, I could see that very easily happening, assuming Arizona doesn't win the Pac-12. So I'm going to go with Tennessee there, and they would play Arizona, and I'm going to go with Tennessee to actually win this one. I don't know if it's the best value play from a Vegas perspective, but I think that they have a chance to move up to that one seed, and I think that they could beat an Arizona team that, as I mentioned, has been more up and down. It definitely hasn't faced the challenges Tennessee has in their Pac-12 schedule. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your predictions below.